Yat ehpene. That's good morning. She tote on nasha. Tadeshki's name slant for the chili bashishin. Adot is a slane dashiche, a shinhe dashanale. And that is my customary introduction. My uncle used to always say, wherever you go, no matter if you're in Japan or Peru or somewhere, you always introduce yourself because you never know who's going to be out in the audience. It could be your grandma, someone related to you. And that's how you interrelate and then you try to keep that balance, that social thing going all the time. I am from North Leupp Family Farms. We're located in Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm sorry, Loop, Arizona. So, as a way of an introduction, I did my customary introduction, and it translates into that I was born into the Gap Rock clan, and my fathers are of the Bitter Water clan, and my maternal grandma would be the Mini Goats, and my paternal would be the Salt clan. So North Leupp is we're a community-owned and community-operated 100-acre farm. We're also a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So a lot of our activities and a lot of our services are geared towards our communities and our people, and which doesn't mean that you can't make a profit here and there with a nonprofit organization. And what we do, we're dedicated to enhance the development of a sustainable food system and also support the environmentally sensitive agricultural practices and promote the revitalization of Navajo traditions and agricultural traditions. And of course, our farm also, allows, we invite families to come to our farm, and on our 100-acre farm, we assign them plots so they can, cultivate their own produce. They plant the seeds, they water the seeds, they weed it, and then whatever harvest they get, it's mainly a sustenance type farming, so they'll feed their families and their relatives, as well as if they have any extras, they'll take it out to the roadside and sort of market that produce as well. So thank you for allowing me to come up here and allowing me to share with you. Some of the things I like to sort of, touch on is tradition. And tradition is very important, among the Navajo people. And I'll get into that. Then we'll go ahead and I'll touch as well on food, health, some of the conservation efforts that we do at the farm, as well as the economic development. Out where we live, there's very, very few opportunities to have that economic development. And then also I want to get into our partnerships and our sponsors. And I think that's what really keeps us going. If we didn't have I call them friends and family, if we didn't have that, we really probably wouldn't be progressing. Even though farming is what we do, but there's also that administrative part of it, the financial part of it, and so I'm very thankful for them and my gratitude. Then I just sort of summarize a little bit, and then I'll conclude. Okay. Tradition, old and new. As our youth get assimilated more and more into mainstream America. A lot of our tradition of our elders are fast disappearing. So North Leupp Family Farms is committed to re-engaging the past, our past, with the future. And how do we accomplish this? We demonstrate and we promote an innovative approach to incorporating sustainable as well as modern and traditional techniques and practices, farming practices. As you can see on the slide, a tractor, that's modern. When you operate 100 acres, you can't do it with a horse and a plow. our mule plow. Then you'll notice the micro irrigation, the drip system. That's also modern, which is very important because it allows us to conserve water and also be more efficient and effective. And of course, the production does increase with that. I've noticed, over the years. And then as well as our solar power irrigation unit, which allows us to pump water with. In the past, we used to have this diesel generator, which was really loud, of course, and dirty, unsustainable, expensive. Of course, we used to spend like $6,000 in one growing season, and our growing seasons are from May to August, September, and so yeah, it was quite expensive. And some of the old ways that we still have is we still do the community farming. In Navajo, farming is a family affair, and so for a while there, folks, just started getting off on their own. And I know when I first came to the farm, you'd have one farmer over here doing his own thing, while all the farmers, just basically doing their own thing. But I'm starting to see that. I'm starting to see that tradition of the old days. When I was growing up, our family used to travel around to other homesteads, other families, and we would help each other's out. And likewise, they would come back and help us out. And that really increased our crop production, as well as, the interpersonal relationships that we develop. I don't know if you ever heard of that's a systematic, and I'll get into that a little bit more, of how we treat our people, and how we, interact with Mother Nature. Traditional farming. So we demonstrate and promote innovative approach and incorporating traditional and modern. And then we talked about how communities, that's part of the traditional past. And then our traditional farming practices include stories. They also have chants, prayers, and we hold the farm, we hold it really sacred. I remember when growing up, and my grandma, she would always get dressed up. She'd put on some really nice clothes, put on her jewelries and stuff, just to go to the farm. And people would say, "Why are you doing that?" Because that's a really sacred place. You want to respect that, and treat it like you were going to church or something. As well as some of the tradition, and in our stories, the corn, how the corn, you put the seeds in the ground, it comes up, it germinates, and it sprouts, and you start growing. Well, each of those stages is a milestone, and that's just like in our lives. As we grow up, we have milestones. We graduate, we get married, we go on to college, and so does the plant. They have those different stages, and then pretty soon that plant will mature. It'll, produce food, and that food, it'll go back into the ground, and so it's a big circle, just like it is with life. And so, the corn itself, is symbolic to our growing up and to our lifestyle. It's a well-rounded approach to it, and. Food is also something that, Navajo people really revere. The USDA, currently has identified nearly all of Navajo Nation as a food desert due to severely limited access to affordable, fresh, and wholesome foods. Does anybody know what food desert means? I mean, what is a food desert? Food desert is a place where you really don't have access. One example is from where in our community we have to travel one way 50 miles just to get to a grocery store. So it's 100 miles round trip, and you can't do that on a daily basis unless you got all the gas and you have time to do that. So which limits a lot of our food accessibility. And then when you do get some of the alternatives, I guess, is go to the local convenience store, which is a gas station basically. And of course I call it the inconvenience store. But there, they don't sell healthy fruits. They don't have fresh fruits. They don't have, what it is just sugary foods and real, power drinks and stuff like that. So here's some of the facts. In 2014, the Diné Policy Institute reported that there was only 10, full-service grocery stores on the whole reservation. It covers about 27,000 square miles of the reservation. So there was only 10 grocery stores that made up within the reservation. So many of the issues that we face today on the Navajo Nation are directly tied to an insecure food system. What's North Leupp Family Farm doing about that? Our primary goal at North Leupp is to meet the specific needs of our people and the food system and the expectations of our community. Meaning that oftentimes when I go to like a nursing home or a hospital, and we have our elders there, and they try to serve them food that they're not familiar with. And one example is grandma, you try to serve her a hot dog, and she's like, what is that? And so we need to, as North Leupp Farms, we need to identify that. So I go to these hospitals and I work with elders, and we try to bring in traditional food back into the system for them. As well as Leupp too, if we could somehow develop a traditional food system there, we could, perhaps get rid of these convenience stores. And number two, we increase domestic fresh food access and consumption. That will take us into the schools, and we teach our children about fresh fruits and how to prepare them as well as to consume. And so that's one of our goals too, is increase that task. And also we want to develop new opportunities, economic opportunities, marketing opportunities for local food producers while improving the community's self-reliance. Oftentimes, folks, they can grow food, but they can't get it out to the market, and because there's a very limited access to that. Oftentimes, it's transportation factors. There's money issues and stuff like that, as well as food compliance is probably one of the most important thing. And able to sell our produce to schools, to hospitals, we have to make sure that the food is safe. The food is something that the community is in agreement with, and with that we have the GAP, the good health practices, as well as the good agricultural practices, which satisfies a lot of the regulations within our state, and overall just improve the food security. That's by increasing crop production, as well as bringing in other foods from regional producers. There's a lot of producers in our area, so one of my tasks is to go out and bring those foods in. It doesn't necessarily have to be grown on our farm. I go out to some of the orchards in Utah. I bring back peaches, apples, pears, because those are some of the foods that our ground doesn't allow us to grow. And then I think the number 6 is preserve Navajo culture, identity, and traditional farming allows us to do that. And the children, is the place to go when you want to do that. Revitalize native Navajo culture. Health, as you see, it reads Yat-e. When you say Yat-e, let's say I shake your hand, what I'm doing is I'm, offering you a good health, a long, prosper, Yat-e, may you live long, a good, healthy life. And I was talking to my friend over here, they're from Hawaii, and she goes, that sounds a bit like aloha, that's a universal greetings, which means a lot of things. And in Navajo, it also means health. So let me just give you some of the health facts. As Navajo Nation, we face a health crisis, including obesity, diabetes, heart disease, as well as hypertension and cancer. And as a matter of fact, the IHS, the Indian Health Services, estimates that 1 in 3 on our reservation are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetic. Currently, I think with the rate is reaching 50% of the population on the reservation. And my friend used to always say, if you got a crowd of Navajos out there, rather than saying how many of you have diabetes, you say how many of you don't have diabetes. And so I thought that was a little backwards, but he's got a point. He's got a point. And so some of the activities that we do at North Leupp Family Farms is to promote that, to promote the development. And Navajo's food systems are crucial to improving the well-being of our people. And a recent study also conducted by Diné Policy Institute found that the current food system does not serve the needs of the Navajo Nation. And of course, it negatively impacts the well-being of Diné. Where we're at, we have a USDA distribution, food distribution. We call it commodity foods. Well, a lot of those foods are processed. It's fat, and it's not. The people, oftentimes they get their food and they don't eat it. They'll feed it to their animals or something. So, if we can, bring in the access to healthy foods, I know we can sort of combat that. And so right now the Navajo people are experiencing an epidemic level of food insufficiency. That means hunger. Oftentimes our children, the only meal they get is at school lunch, and they go home and they're hungry. And so one of the projects that we have is a school market. So what we do is we take our produce out to schools, and we give away to parents and also to students. And then of course there's also a significant leakage of dollars, Navajo food dollars, to border towns, and so that really does affect the economics of rather than keeping the money on the reservation. It goes out to Flagstaff or Winslow, and we don't see that money again. And then, of course, there's little or no economic viability for our local farmers and ranchers. But I think the most troubling is the disintegration of our lifeway, which is is a system of kinship observed by our people and all living things in existence. And so, when you don't have that, health, you're definitely going to also lose that relationship with other people as well as with, your surrounding. And so what is North Leupp Farms doing about it? Well, we provide presentations, demonstrations on traditional food and healthy eating, focusing on a wide variety of traditional foods. A wild forage, we go out and look for wild carrots. We go out and try to, look for wild onions, and we teach the children that. And some of the techniques and the practices are nearly extinct, and especially the culinary knowledge. How do you prepare that food? And I believe that plays a crucial role in the health of Native people. So North Leupp Family Farm, it has activities that provide the community with an increased awareness of that risk factor associated with an unhealthy diet and a sedentary life. We tell our kids, you need to get out there and get out to the farm, because farming is a lot of work. Farming is a lot of work from sun up to sundown, and you're out there under the hot sun, and you're physically exerting yourself. And I notice a lot of our youth, they stay home and play games and sit on the couch, and so we try to get away from that. And this information will help community members make a more informed decision. And I know, choice is something that's, a personal thing. But if we can get out there and help people make that choice, you know, on proper dietary habits and maintaining a good lifestyle, you know, that's a big factor in turning things around. And I always tell my students when they come out, health is something that you can control. There's a lot of discourses in our nation. You know, you got discrimination, you have land loss. You know, those are things that we really can't control. But health, our health is something, you know, we can control. And I tell our students, you know, when you can control that, then you empower yourself. And it is something that's, you know, really self-worth for them. And it's something that they learn and they carry on through their lifetime, and they'll never forget about it. And they'll say, thank you, Farmer Stacey. Conservation is also one of the goals and one of our values at the farm. And my friend Justin, he's one of the founders of the North Leupp Family Farm, and he really felt conservation will reconnect the Navajo people to Mother Earth. And along with other sentences, he's always in with this sentence. And it's true, you know. I really believe that, and that's why once I found out, I got hooked. So North Leupp Family Farm supports and promotes a sustainable food system and ecologically sound farming methods. The farm seeks to ensure that farmers are able to produce food indefinitely. We're not here just to grow for one season. We're going to be here years after years, and our people will have, you know, food security, and that's one of the main goals. And of course, to contribute to the sustainable food security. Environmental sensitive agricultural keeps our water clean and potable. The slide on this is a filtration unit that we recently installed at the farm, and what that allows us to do is it allows us to take the well water, the one I'm drinking out of. I know that was when I was younger. I don't think I can do that now. But it allows us to take the groundwater and run it through a nano technology filtration system. And the end product is potable water, which is very popular with our elders and our farmers, because in our region, water is very scarce and not really good. So if we can do that, you know, we're definitely moving in the right direction in conserving water, and also, you know, making our lifestyle choices. And some of the things also is I sort of mentioned the solar powered deep well irrigation system, which, you know, is probably quite sustainable. You know, we don't have to spend another dollar on gasoline, and it's a clean energy, which the folks love, and I think that's just going to empower people to come out to the farm, knowing that, you know, we don't need to spend money on, you know, energy. And then we also have a conservation plan, which is a USDA approved. And if we can practice that yearly, you know, it allows us to amend our soil naturally. And if we don't have good soil, we don't have a farm. And I keep telling my farmers that too. You got to give back to the soil. It's just like giving back to Mother Earth, you know, so Mother Earth can give to you. And I know a lot of folks have been talking about seeds, and that's one of the things we do is seed saving. And our farmers truly believe that if you take care of your seeds, treat them like your own children, they will grow out and you know, they will come back and sustain you and prolong, you know, your farm. And another thing is also data collecting. We do a lot of data collecting. Oftentimes we'll, you know, count our kernels and sort of estimate what is the yield this year. And each year it's been steadily going up. And so data keeping is really important for us, so we can always improve on what we did in the past. This is the one I'm most proud of, and it really is something that goes to my heart, is our educational outreach program. Why do we do outreach program? Um, well, we sort of treat it as like a standalone task. That's how crucial it is and how important it is. And so by doing that, we conduct local community needs assessments. So what I mean by that is we'll go out and see what people are buying, what people are eating, what people prefer. You know, we do that through surveys. We do that by actually going out in the community and you know, recruiting comments and inputs. And that's really has allowed us to focus on a lot of the traditional approach. And also attending community meetings, not locally, but also way far away, like in Washington, D.C., which allows me to take home a lot of this, the stuff that I learned from, you know, our other food producers around the country, and I, you know, relay that back to them. And that's something that they didn't know about, and so that's one of the ways we do. Also, is North Leupp is reaching out to the community. And then also reaching out to local communities and schools. Schools is very important in promoting food and connecting the food producers with local consumers. Why do we do our outreach program? Well, North Leupp Farm believes and anticipates that our educational outreach will have a positive impact, you know, to initiate a community program in an effort to encourage people to grow their own and to attain the benefits of the health and also the self-worth. So what type of outreach do we do? So we bring kids out to the farm. We teach them, educate them on cultivation, the preparation of food, traditional Navajo foods, and also some of the techniques and practices that we do out there. And like I said, we invite schools. Some of the schools that we work with is Star School, Dr. Sorensen, as well as Leupp Public School, which is a Flagstaff Unified School District, and Winslow Dorm, which is an urban dorm setting. So oftentimes the students will go off the reservation, but they're missing out on what's going on back home. They miss that traditional farming. So we go out to residential schools that are off, you know, in an urban setting, and so we try to bring that back to them as well, the knowledge. And so North Leupp demonstrates and teaches, you know, our students the fast disappearing art of Navajo culture and traditional culinary. You notice I keep saying that, and I want to, you know, just, if you can go away with something from here, is that, you know, that traditional, that culinary practices that are fast disappearing. And what is it that we accomplish through these outreach program? Well, these activities, they further our mission, both by providing education and a healthy living lifestyle and diet choices. And also, it teaches them about the revitalization of Navajo culture. Oftentimes, you go out to the schools, and the culture is, they don't know their clan, they don't know, their fathers, their parents, their grandmas, and that's part of assimilation, I reckon. And so we're dedicated to trying to turn that around. Local economic development. The impact of food assessment or food accessibility and income, or the lack of, on the reservation shows that there is a larger factor, a social economic factor, and a systematic factor that influences economic development in our community. As a matter of fact, the Diné Policy Institute also reports that the Navajo Nation is characterized by an exceptionally high rate of unemployment and poverty. And then our nation, the Navajo Nation our Division of Economic Development estimates that unemployment on the res is at 50%. But if you factor in a lot of some of the other factors, it's probably as high as 70%. So what North Leupp does, and the reason for these, the high rate is the lack of, formal employment as well as business opportunities on a res. Call it the res. The Navajo Nation, so we've developed a farmer's market. We have a market on site, which allows us, to meet those needs and desires for fresh produce, and also establish a customer base within the 100-mile radius. If you go out there now, you will see people are actually, they're an informal type food preparation. You have your roadside stands. You have people out there, bringing produce from their cornfield. So within that, including Leupp, within that 100-mile radius, there is definitely a desire and a need to establish that. Of course, there's also the schools. We recently had a USDA farm to school grant, which allowed us to establish some of that customer base. And restaurants is another one. There's a restaurant in Winslow, La Posada. They love to come out to our farm and purchase our blue corn and some of the other traditional crops that we have. And grocery stores. It would be great if I can, get my foot into the local gas station and, put up a little, give them some competition. So we operate a farmer's market on site. And just think if we can build like a mobile market with a cooler, which will travel around the communities and schools, and which I know will have a real effective impact on the fresh food accessibility. We also recognize that currently the food sold in an informal economy reflects the food of the Navajo Nation, including our own community, Leupp. Therefore, making healthy, fresh, local produced, traditional food, and having it available through local distribution and marketing, and it will really have an impact on our economy, our current food economy. And how are we able to do that? You see that hoop house there. That allows us to extend our season. We have 2 or 3 of those hoop houses, and which allows us, to grow a variety of different foods as well. We grow tomatoes, chili, garlic, one of my favorites. And the chefs, they love that. As a matter of fact, I was approached by a chef and wanted to buy all my garlic at $12 a pound. I said, wow. If you can make a one plot of garlic, I'm sure you can make a profit. And so we do that with our hoop house. It allows us to grow year round. And I plant my garlic in the fall, and by June I'm ready to pull them, because I grew them in the greenhouse. If I tried growing them out in the field, they wouldn't grow. The rabbits, everybody, the birds will get to it. I say everybody because we do get community members coming down to the farm and thinking that we're a big corporation, so they'll just take things on their own. And then, of course, the Sunrise Farmers Market is the business arm of North Leupp Family Farms. And then when funding is available, when funding allows us, we're bringing on employees, full-time seasonal employees. And oftentimes, I have an assistant farm manager who's full-time, seasonal. And then I bring in students that are really looking for work and employ them on a part-time base. And that contributes to our local economy. And then as well as what we have right now, we have several studies out there, feasibility studies. Some are done or some are in the works, and they're shovel-ready projects. Now, if we can just get funding for those, if we can get investors, somebody throw money at that project, it will definitely make a difference. Right now, we have a blue corn meal project. It's a $250,000 budgeted project, but there's really no money available for it. So it's just sitting on the back burner. But in a few years, I bet you we get that going, with more exposure and with more education on it. Without partners and without sponsors, we definitely couldn't, approach this economic development in the same way. I consider them friends and family. So in collaboration, with the Diné communities, state and local governments and natural resources, North Leupp Farms develops strategy to strengthen our food security, connects local farmers with technical knowledge and viable food markets, as well as increased self-reliance, and it demonstrates and promotes innovative approach to traditional farming practices. I'm just going to mention some of our dedicated sponsors. Smithsonian, of course, on top of the charts, and then the USDA. We've been able to go after some USDA grants, like through rural development, and they really help us out. Though it's a long process, it's a complicated, application process. But when you get awarded one of those, you want to do cartwheels. You're going somewhere with that. And then there's also private foundations, private scholarships. One of them is a Christensen Fund, Apex Applied Technology, Colorado Plateau Foundation, and locally we have Tulani Lake Enterprise, which offers a lot of capacity building services. And then schools as well, University of Arizona, Diné College, and just some of our local schools like Star School. They really help us out. If they go after a grant, Mark comes to me and says, "You want to partner up?" I say, "Yeah, let's do it." And he's got radical ideas just like I do. And so if you can know people that have radical ideas, sometimes people think you're nuts. But if you keep at it, you're going to prove them wrong. Then we also have Grand Canyon Trust and our local government, the Leupp Chapter House. A chapter house is where the community gathers on a monthly basis, and they make decisions. They sort of chart the way, which way the community should go. And oftentimes I get inputs from my farmers that, no, don't go through the local, they're just going to mess us up. But I tell them, if we're going to do anything, everything that we do at the farm, it has to go through the local chapter house. Otherwise, we won't have the support of the community. In summary, and also in closing, let me just say this. Today, North Leupp serves to enhance the sustainability of local foods and support healthy lifestyle. Again, I want that to be ingrained in your head, and the revitalization of Navajo tradition. Also, the environmentally sensitive practices. Since 2005, North Leupp Family Farms offered a community farm program in an effort to encourage people to grow their own food and to attain the benefits of health and also self-worth. And then so we also talked about developing collaborations between Diné communities, local and state, national resources. And then we also developed strategies to strengthen food products or food security, and then also to connect local farmers with technical knowledge and a viable food market. We also we talked about demonstrations and promotions that allows us to do innovative approach to farming. I truly believe that North Leupp Farm, our goals and our values, the tradition, the food, the health, and the conservation efforts that we do, they're all interrelated. You can't have one value without having the other one. For example, you can't have conservation without having a good health, or having good health without having food. And so if you'll notice, all those have, they affect each other's. And it also reflects, a balance and a harmonious relationship, and not only with our people, but also with the wildlife and the Mother Earth. So my true feeling is that it takes resiliency. You can't just give up after, one bad harvest or no harvest. You got to come back every year. I always say that us farmers, we have, short-term memory loss. Last season, we sweated, we mosquitoes, bugs, everything. And by the end of the season, we're ready to throw our hands up and go home. But come springtime, we forget all about that, and then we come back and we want to do it all over again. So that's resiliency. You come back and you try to improve on last year, and most of all, you have to have a vision. Where is it that you want to go with this? And also, quite as important is the community support. To call yourself a community farm, it doesn't take one person. It takes, a whole village. So community farm is really important. It builds the farm that serves the betterment of the people. I understand you may not get rich, by traditional farming, but if you have a good business sense, and if you have these sustainable practices, trust me, your farm will be, it'll have that longevity, and you'll continue to have that farm. And that's, part of our farm is, like I said, we're community owned, we're community operated. So one of these days, I'll be able to just sit back in the corner and just shut up and have the kids, run the farm. So that's what I'm talking about. Thank you. Yeah. Questions? That's okay. I think I made myself clear. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes, and for the invitation.